Hello everyone, Camp Can Do family. It's Counselor John here in my normal 9 to 5 position as Ranger John down here at Gulf Islands National Seashore on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. And I want to take some time today to talk to you a little bit about one of the most fascinating creatures that lives down here on the coastal Mississippi, and that is the American alligator. It's probably our most asked about animal that we see down here on the coast, at least in the Davis Bayou area, and for good reason. It is the largest reptile in America. It can grow up to 15 feet and weigh up to 1,000 pounds. It's a very intimidating looking animal. It is an apex predator. They're very large. They can be very dangerous. But as I'll talk about a little bit, they're mostly misunderstood. They're not nearly as aggressive or nearly as a threat to human as people may think they are. But they can be dangerous. Again, very big animal, a lot of teeth. They kind of look like living monsters or living dinosaurs with their scales and their dark green skin. And actually, fun fact, they go back as long as the dinosaurs. So the relatives of the American alligator have lived for 150 million years. And of course, the dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years ago. So alligators literally are living dinosaurs, and they are actually the closest living relative that we can trace back to the dinosaurs that still exist today. Kind of fun fact about the American alligators, and honestly alligator and crocodile species, is the closest living relative to them are actually birds. So other animals that did evolve from the dinosaurs, which I think is pretty cool. But the American alligator, again, really awesome, fascinating animal. One of the largest reptiles in the world and the largest reptile in the United States of America. And that creates a lot of excitement. People want to see it. They want to talk about it. And we do that here quite a bit down at Gulf Islands National Seashore. So let's see if we can go spot some. So we're standing here on the boardwalk here in an area of Gulf Islands National Seashore we call Davis Bayou. And what we're looking at here is Stark Bayou, which is one of the fresh waterways that runs out here and mixes with the Biloxi Bay, creating a brackish water environment. What that means is it's a mixture of salt water and fresh water that creates what we call a saltwater nursery. Salt marsh nursery, I should say. Abundance of young marine life is going to gather in these waters, which creates great opportunities for meals for larger animals like the American alligator. And actually, if we look down here, you'll see all these fish. I hope you can see them at least circling around in here in the water and jumping up. I mean, there is just dozens of them, if not hundreds of them. And that's what these waters are filled. They're filled with fish like this, amphibians, reptiles, crustaceans like crabs. Birds frequent this water looking for an easy meal like those little fish you just saw. And because of that, the American alligator uses this primarily as his hunting grounds. They are going to cruise through here, typically at night, remaining as stealthy as possible, looking for unsuspecting fish and birds and reptiles, basically looking for their next meal. This is where the larger alligators will spend most of their time hunting, in this brackish water environment. Now, because they don't have salt glands like the crocodiles do, they cannot live in saltwater environments. So they do eventually have to get back to their freshwater pond, or gator pond as we typically call it around here, to live and just survive. That is their home. They need that fresh water. But they will come out here in the bayous and in the edges of the Biloxi Bay, basically looking for their next meal. So I don't see any cruising through here right now, but if we walk over here across the street, you can see we put up our gator warnings. This is an area they frequent quite a bit, and they'll even come up here on the sidewalk because they are cold-blooded animals. They need to maintain their body temperature through outside resources. They cannot do that on their own. And a great way to do that is come out here on a hot Mississippi day like today and lay on this asphalt or lay on this concrete. It's kind of like a heating rock in a lizard tank that you'll see, somebody that keeps pet lizards. And right here is our great Gator Patrol interpretive sign, informational sign explaining kind of what I just told you. You're going to have large gators up to 15 feet patrolling through this area. I mean, look at this picture. That is a really big gator, and I believe that picture was taken here. That's probably a 14-15 foot gator. So this is where they're going to come. This is where they're going to hunt. This is kind of where the action happens, and a lot of times you won't even see it. Again, for large reptiles, the largest reptile in America, they are very, very stealthy and very great at staying hidden. So we're here now at the larger of our two freshwater ponds, or gator ponds, here in the Davis Bayou area. And we see right now our friend Bubbles is hanging out here. Bubbles is about a 12-foot gator, a male adult gator, who we call Bubbles because he likes to come up and take a big breath of fresh air, and then he'll sit there sometimes before going back and blowing some bubbles through his nose. That's one of his favorite things to do, as he entertains the people who are sitting here on the gator deck watching him, right where we have our Life in a Gator Pond sign, letting everybody know the different critters and different animals you'll see in here: turtles, other kinds of lizards, fish, birds. This is a great habitat for many different wildlife, and they're all potential meals to Bubbles, to be honest. He is the apex predator in this environment. Gators are very large reptiles. They are the largest reptile in the United States of America. They can grow up to 15 feet and weigh over 1,000 pounds. Their territory ranges from all the way up in the western or the eastern area, coastal North Carolina, down to the south tip of Texas. And they've actually found the American alligator has now moved up into the Tennessee area. And that's mostly because their habitat is expanding because of things like climate change and global warming. Also, they're being pushed out of some other areas where they have had habitat by humans. And also, their population is actually just growing. It's doing very well. In 1967, the American alligator was placed on the endangered species list from habitat destruction. Their waterways that they lived in were polluted, and they were being hunted for their skin and meat. Because of laws and regulations that us as humans in the United States have put into effect, they've rebounded very nicely. So now their waters are much cleaner. There's very strict rules on when and where you can hunt them, and the American alligator is on the least concerned list now. So they're doing very well, and because of that, their habitat and their range in this country is expanding. One of the really cool things about gators is during the winter months, they don't hibernate, but they brumate. It's kind of a daily hibernation. And this allows them to survive in the colder months down here in southern Mississippi, and of course even more colder months in more northern states like North Carolina and Tennessee. And what that process is like is they go into this daily hibernative state where they will dig down as deep as 65 feet into the muck and the mud here in this freshwater pond to insulate themselves from the colder temperatures. They are cold-blooded animals. They can't insulate them, or they can't control their own body temperatures. They need to find other ways to do that. They're not warm-blooded like us. So they'll insulate themselves, and then as the sun comes out at the highest part or the hottest part of the day, they will come out of that gator hole, as we call it. They'll come to the surface to recharge, to get a fresh breath of air. They can only hold their breaths for about 4 to 6 hours, 24 hours in very extreme circumstances, but usually about 4 to 6 hours. So they have to come up to the surface to get that breath of fresh air, and also recharge by getting some of that heat energy from the sun. And that's kind of what Bubbles is doing right now. It's basically, he's at the top here. We have some light rain coming down, but I think he's up here just to get some warmth from the sun, as they'll typically do. Gators love sunbathing. That's one of their favorite activities. So when they're out in the day, that's mostly what they're doing. And when they're out at night, they're hunting. And they hunt mostly like living mouse traps. So they can be very fast, but they're not going to chase most of their prey down. They're going to stay very stealthily below the water, a lot of times only looking like a log or maybe a patch of debris. They're going to look for a fish or a bird or a small mammal to explode out of the water and catch. They're going to use their razor sharp teeth to bring that prey into the water and bring it underwater if they have to, if it's still alive, to drown it before chewing it up into bits, and that's how they get their meals. The danger of gators to humans is a little over-exaggerated, though, to be honest. Most of what they're looking to eat is much smaller than us, so we don't really fit into their food chain. But mistakes can happen, and most of the bad human and gator interactions that we've had here, at least in Mississippi, have come from people encroaching on the gator's territory, or a lot of times feeding the gator because they want to see its powerful jaws in action. They'll throw it a chicken wing or something like that, and they just get too close. And although gators don't associate us with food because of how large we are, we can change that really quickly if we start feeding them every day. They become conditioned to look to humans for food. If we don't have food, then we could possibly become the food. So that's one thing you definitely want to do. You never want to feed a wild alligator. But Bubbles is just kind of hanging out right here, and like I said, I think he's mostly just maybe curiously watching me and also taking in the sun. Gators can grow to live to over 50 years old, so they're very long-living animals as well. And their life cycle is basically they're juveniles until they hit 10 years old and about 6 feet, when they become full adult gators and they move into their own territory or their own freshwater pond, such as this one that Bubbles has claimed here. But when they're young, they will share a pond with several other juvenile or small gators for at least the first 10 years typically. And that's where we're going to go to next. We're going to go over to one of the juvenile ponds and see if we can't spot some baby gators and talk a little bit about the early stages of the gator's life cycle. So we'll say bye to Bubbles. Oh, there he goes, putting on the show for us. See you later, Bubbles. Stay cool. Head over to the juvenile pond. So here we are at our smaller of our freshwater ponds where the smaller gators, the juvenile or baby gators, live. And here is one right in front of us. This gator's probably about 5 feet, so one of the biggest of the smaller gators we have in this pond, but he's still a baby. They don't reach adulthood till about 10 feet or when they are, about 6 feet or when they are 10 years old. So he's still a baby gator. He's just the biggest one of the pond, and maybe we'll see some other ones of varying sizes swim up here. And the reason that they're in this pond is this is where the mama gator, the female gator, decided to build her nest and lay her eggs. So she'll come to a pond like this, and typically she's going to build her nest out of twigs and grass and sticks and mud, almost just like a bird. And oops, look, he just went under there. I spooked him. And they'll lay up to 65 eggs, sometimes a little more in different cases. And that mama gator will have baby gators in about 65 days. And when they are born, they are very small, only a couple inches long. So the cycle of life or the food chain kind of flips, because although they will make everything their meal in these ponds when they are large adult gators, it is the opposite when they're baby gators. They can't defend themselves for about the first year of their life. So their mom's going to stay here and protect them as best she can, but again, they are food to everything that's going to come around here. Turtles, birds, raccoons, even other gators will come in here and feed on baby gators. So the mom does the best she can to protect them, but out of, let's say, 60, 65 eggs, and you get, let's say, 40, 45 baby gators that hatch, typically only about 3 of them are going to live to adulthood. So in this pond we have here, we have as much as 7 juvenile gators that live here. So that's a pretty good number. Due to the varying size, the smallest one's probably about a foot long. The largest, which we just saw, I think is about 5 feet. They are probably from different hatchings. So they're not all from the same mom, or they could be from the same mom, but they're not all from the same batch of eggs. Female gators can lay eggs several times in 1 year, and they can do it any time of year. And we'll typically see all kinds of different little critters in here, namely other reptiles. We'll see a lot of turtles, which I think we see something swimming underwater right there, which I do believe is a turtle. Mississippi mudsliders, box turtles, terrapins, any kind of terrestrial turtle or turtles that like the brackish water environments like we have here in the bayou will be hanging out here in these freshwater ponds, or at least around them. And one of the funny things is, especially during the winter months, when we talk about that brumation period, or the period where, oh, there's a little frog right there that just hopped up. See him? The period where these gators are going to burrow into the mud and try to insulate themselves from the cold weather, and they're going to come to the top to get some fresh air and get some sun during the winter months. When they're doing that, it's not uncommon to see the gators and the things they eat, like the turtles and the other reptiles, actually all huddled up on this log together. You'll see turtles on top of gators, gators on top of turtles. And really what happens is their need to stay warm, to survive that way, is greater than their need to eat. They don't eat a lot when they brumate. I mean, they don't eat barely anything. The only thing they're really trying to do is stay warm, get some fresh air, and drink water. So you'll see them all kind of ganged up together, and they're just kind of coexisting. Because again, their big need right now is to stay warm. And gators operate on instinct more than intelligence. So that's what they're following, is their natural instinct is to get that warm air and to stay alive during those colder months. And you can hear the cars coming by me right up against this freshwater pond. This is one of the main entrances into the Davis Bayou area of Gulf Islands National Seashore. So we do have a problem with gators coming up on this road to get the warmth of the asphalt here in the summer months and absorb that, and then we will just lay out on the road here, which obviously is very dangerous for the gators and the motorists too, because we have people that want to get out and come up and see the gators. And even a small gator, a gator that's only a couple feet long, can still be a threat to a person if they get too close. In fact, that's actually some of the bigger threats we have, because people don't respect the smaller gators like they do the larger gators. They think they're cute. They'll go up next to them, and a couple foot gator can still take a pretty good chunk out of you. But more times than not, they're going to relent. They're going to go backwards and go into their pond. Again, not as aggressive as people make them out to be, especially when they're approached by a larger animal such as a human. So thanks for spending a little time with me today to learn a little bit about the American alligator. I hope this piques your curiosity and you guys can get out there and learn more about not only the American alligator, but some of the wildlife you guys have up there in your area. Many great resources in your local library and online. It's one of my passions. I love animals and love learning about new ones. So I appreciate you spending some time with me today to learn a little bit about them yourself. I really miss everybody. I hope I get to see everybody next year at camp. I hope you and your family stay happy, healthy, and safe. Until I see you again, see you later, alligators.